Hi everyone, welcome to new mentor training for academic year September 2022 to 23. Welcome, you'll do a bit more welcome in a sec. Apologise for the voice. I haven't been very well, so I'm very bunged up and apologise for any coughing. I've got these on because I've got a dog snoring at my feet as well, and you really don't want to be hearing that. So this is a video for those of you who sadly weren't able to come to our face-to-face new mentor training on September the 21st. It's a shame to have missed you, but I'm going to make this video so that, just keep an eye on the time there, so that you can get the gist of what we may have covered. Now, obviously, in the main face-to-face meeting, it's 2 hours long. This is going to be significantly less than that, don't worry. But you'll have missed out on some of the hands-on stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that that doesn't happen for you. It's really important that you get in touch with your subject lead. So whatever subject you are, get in touch with them and ask them to send you some lesson observations that are good exemplars, okay? So we can pass on the information a different way. So quick introduction. Hopefully you've already watched my generic video. And like I said, it was going to be a bit topsy-turvy for new mentors. My name is Branagh. I'm the mentoring lead here at Sussex Initial Teacher Education. So you're going to see a lot of me, sadly, bless you, over the next academic year. I do all the videos to get you used to writing the forms. And if you've got any problems at all, the first port of call is really your curriculum tutor, because it's normally about your trainee or something to do with your subject, you contact them. But if there's anything specifically about mentoring, then please do feel free to contact me. My email was on the first slide. Okay. Massive welcome. Thank you so much for joining our team of mentors. You're the most important people in our partnership, bar none. Doesn't matter what anyone else says. Mentors are the most important. It's a bit like, we welcome EasyJet Club class passengers too. We do welcome alumni, very much so. So thanks for coming back. We obviously didn't scare you off. So if you are an ex-trainee, welcome back. You never quite leave Sussex, do you? It's sort of like a boomerangy place. Now, how to use this session. It's really important that you have there's no new mentor handbook. There's a mentor guidebook, a mentor and professional tutor guidebook. Now, really, that's the oracle. That's where everything is. I couldn't possibly cover everything that's in that guidebook in a training session like this. It's not possible. So really, that's where all the answers are. That guidebook is everything, right? It takes you through each phase of the year. It explains what forms, it's got all the deadlines in. And that's the link there. Now, hopefully, by the magic of Telebox, hopefully you can see that here. So this is what the web page looks like. The professional guidebook is in there, and that's where everything is, and you can hyperlink to all the different bits that you need to, okay? So that's really important. If you see a little star on one of the slides, either jump ahead or take some time to read them. I won't be going through them all, okay? Now, this is very general. This is for all new mentors to Sussex University. If you have a school direct trainee or a part-time trainee, their years are different. Salaried is longer, but the deadlines are the same. Part-time, it's over 2 years, so the deadlines are really quite radically different. So please do be mindful that any deadlines I discuss are for the 1 year PGC school direct and not necessarily for those other slightly different programs that we run. As I've said, there's all kinds of other videos to come out during the year. This is just to be watched at any time during the year. So you might be brand new in September 2022. You might be at some other time during the year, okay? So it should work for any phase through the year. Fingers crossed, let's see. So what we're going to do, go through some important things like what's the role of a mentor? What is this job about? Why is it so incredibly important? I'm going to talk you through how we create our courses here at Sussex. We have obviously a template to design our curriculum, all linked to the CCF, and I'll talk to you about the role of the teacher standards, which has changed drastically over the last few years. I'm going to guide you through a year in the life of a mentor. How's it structured? Preparing for the arrival of your trainee. It really doesn't make any difference whether you're watching this at the beginning of placement 1 or placement 2. Trainees still get induction. They still need looking after. So it's just one is quicker than the other. I'll guide you through each phase of our course, explain how you assess your trainee, and then consider some things where things don't quite go to plan. So straight in. Now, obviously, thank you for wanting to become a mentor. But as with most things in life, not everything's completely altruistic. There's reason. Oh, I'm so sorry. Clicked ahead there. There's reasons why we want to do certain things in our career hopefully for our professional development. And certainly being a mentor is one of those roles. You're going to give a lot, absolutely. And especially at the beginning, it's quite sort of front loaded with help and support and time for your trainee. But you're going to get an awful lot back out of it as well. Otherwise, let's be honest. So it is going to change the way you view your teaching, the way you run your classroom, the way you are with your children. It's really is quite transformational if you embrace all the aspects of it. Some of you might be doing it for, you're looking to go in a different direction in your career. You want to be a professional tutor. You might be looking to come over into IT. Whatever it is that you're looking at, being a mentor is a great role. So first thing it does when you're sat at the back of the class, observing your trainee, is you get to see how your class behave to somebody else. I mean, it's really quite enlightening. You're sitting at the back going, I had no idea they were doing stuff like that at the back. So you get sort of magic goggles on your classroom. But it hones your practice. You're now watching again, which you might not have done for a while, watching teaching happening and thinking, oh God, I make that mistake all the time. Why do I do that? Why do I ask them, why are they drawing on my desk? And there's no right answer to that. They don't know why they're drawing on my desk. So it's a different way of viewing the way we do it. It's articulating how we do what we do in the classroom is actually a lot harder than you think. A lot of you are naturally just very good teachers, and being able to explain to a new teacher why you do something in a certain way really helps you hone your practice. Hopefully your trainees will come in with something new. That's always so exciting. You watch them teach and go, oh, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? I'm going to do that myself. You get experience of managing people without too much risk. You're not going to be their line manager. You're not doing anything like that, but you are helping somebody at the beginning of the career, and that is all about people skills. Like I said, you're going to learn a lot about your pupils, seeing them from the back. You're also going to learn about what it's like from our side of the penny, as it were. So what's it like to train adults? So far for a lot of you, maybe your career has just been dealing with children and your colleagues, whereas the moment we go into one of these training roles, dealing with adults is a very different set of diplomatic skills, I would politely describe it. It's a different rule set completely. And also I hope that what it does is you're gonna come into another team. So your team of mentors within your school and the team of mentors within your subject community and the wider community here at Sussex. And that can be really rewarding to be part of a new group of dynamic people. So what does a mentor do? I mean, at its very basic nature, you are guiding this new person into their career. Some of them, remember, are not so young. We get quite a few mature candidates, and that comes with its own set of rewards and risks, I'll put it. And then there's some people that come in that are brand new from university. And again, loads of rewards, but also some risks. They're not used to a professional workplace so much yet. So you're there to scaffold their entry, is the way I've worded it there. You help them plan and teach their lessons at a very basic level. So you co-plan with them. They deliver the lessons. So sorry. And then you help them by feeding back on where they've done well, really important, and where they need to start fine-tuning what they're doing and going to see other colleagues. So you're the one giving all the advice. You can't really get it wrong. And I know a lot of people, when they come in, they're like, oh, I don't know what advice to give. I'm a bit stuck. There's no one right way to train a teacher. It doesn't exist. Right? Thankfully, actually, because we don't want to produce robots. If you look at a lesson and think, I think you should go and observe Andrea in drama because she's got great voice projection, that's what you do. You send them to go and observe Andrea. It will not be time missed, right? They will learn something from observing Andrea, right? Might be different to what you sent them in to see, but they will learn something. Your advice is your advice, and it will only make them better. So don't worry as a new mentor that you don't have the skills yet. You might be a lot more open-minded than some people that have been doing it for a long time. So just go with your gut. Yeah, you're so used to telling children what to do. It's just doing it in a slightly different way. Now, the job has a duality. So on the one hand, and I'll explain more about this in a sec, you are a nurturing presence in the lives of your trainee. You must be. If you're not a very nurturing person, I'm going to be honest, this is probably not the role for you. You need to care about their development really quite deeply, but you also need to be able to assess them. Okay, so I'm just going to sorry, I have to keep pausing to cough. My apologies. So there's going to be a certain element sometimes of conflict, and some trainees take assessment and development targets better than others. So that's definitely one of the trickier bits of the role. So in a very practical sense, you're responsible for managing and coordinating their learning. There's some key mentor literature, as you can imagine. Now, experienced classroom teacher. Now, some of you are sitting there going, I've only been teaching 3 years. That doesn't matter. Don't worry. I mean, we don't want somebody that's been teaching 1 year, because you'd still be an early career teacher, and that's not a good idea because you're still being mentored. But you don't have to have had decades of experience to do this role. You've run a good classroom and you know how it works, and you're going to pass that experience on. So don't get too hung up on that particular language there. Now, here comes the more emotional stuff: guiding, supporting, smoothing the way. That bit's really important. Don't let them fall over if you could move something out of their way, okay? If they fall over or make a mistake, despite all the help you've given them, they're going to have to learn from it, all right? And they're going to learn from an awful lot of mistakes. But if you could see something coming, and you're like, oh, I know that's not going to work. I know that having that conversation with that teacher is going to go badly. And you don't give them a heads up. That's not the role of a mentor. We are supposed to be their guiding light ahead of them, the one with their head torch on, go, oh, careful over there. Oh, careful over there, right? That's our job. And sometimes it can feel that the advice that we want to give them is a little on the edge of professionalism, where you want to say something about a certain situation in school that you've had experience of, and you're like, oh, I don't want to tread on toes, and I need to be very careful. Just word it very carefully if there's a situation that you can help your trainee with. There might be a parent that you need to give them some advice about taking a phone call home. That's important that we give them that heads up, okay? Now, sponsoring is important. We love it when you're on their side. We absolutely love it. And sometimes that's where we can get at odds with each other, between university tutor and mentor, is, you know, you're sponsoring them, you're being on their side, and then we might come along and go, yeah, but yeah, they didn't get that lesson plan in, they didn't get this thing in, they didn't get that in. We still have to have a line that they're not allowed to go under. Counselling is a tricky one. You might have to do quite a bit of that. And yes, befriending. Yes, befriending. These guys are adults. They're allowed to go to the pub with you. You know, we're not dealing with kids. And sometimes I've known that with teaching colleagues. And when I made the move over to university, I found that quite awkward, you know, going out with my trainees to the pub. Don't worry, I've got over it quite nicely. But there's this element of, am I allowed to do that? Is that professionally okay? Yes, it is. Befriending, professional befriending. It's important. This is what the DFE think. As you can imagine, it's quite sort of perfunctory language, but high expectations, models high quality teaching, and is an ambassador for the profession. Now, we know what they mean by that bit there. That's don't be the one that's constantly moaning about teaching, because that's really not helpful to a trainee teacher. Yes, we know that there are things that we need to discuss, and the trainees, excuse me, they're not silly. They can see what's ahead of them, but let's be positive, you know, about why coming into teaching is a really good move. What makes a great mentor? So there are things called mentor standards, just like there's teacher standards, about trusting relationships. That's all really cool. And these are kind of some core values that we think at Sussex. You know, supportive, approachable is incredibly important. You need to know your stuff. You do need to be friendly, welcoming, positive experience, challenging, an important one. You know, give good feedback and allow them to have opportunities. So, quick cough. How do we run our curriculum? So, really important part. Now, hopefully, whatever time of the year you're coming in, you've watched the generic training at some point and have a reasonable idea about the core content framework. So in the olden days, and for some of you, you didn't train that long ago, but the teacher standards is what formed the core of our curriculum. We based everything around the teacher standards. Now, the teacher standards still exist. We use them towards the end. But what they teased out of the teacher standards, to bring a bit more rigor maybe to both sides. We had no problem mapping our curriculum to this, but there are other maybe, I don't know, I'll be polite about it. So some courses maybe around the country needed a bit more honing about where was the academic content and have you really thought of everything, quite small courses in the main. So we were fine. And thankfully, it's all linked to the teacher standards. So we've got these behaviour strands, pedagogy strands, curriculum assessment and professional behaviours. Now it's divided into learn that. So it's like they're mostly the university side and professional studies side at school. So this is an important, so teachers are role models. So you've got to appreciate that, you've got to learn that, right? And we will model that too. And then on the other side of it is, so you've got that knowledge, you know that you're a role model. Now you've got to put it into practice. And what does that look like from a school perspective? Feel free to go and have a look at the full document, but I want you to be really, really assured and reassured that we have studied this to within an inch of its life, and every aspect of what we do, from our professional study side to our curriculum study side, woven with the school professional studies, is all completely mapped against this. So when you see our curriculum maps, you'll see that it's all mapped against the CCF. You don't need to go in here and cross-check. That's all happened already, right? So all you really need to look at are our curriculum maps. Now, each of you is in your own subject cohort. So be you English, music, drama, media, geography, history, whatever. You will have your own curriculum map, which your subject mentors must, not will, must share with you, right? They'll have a Padlet for you with all of this stuff on. Now, it's so important that we see our curriculum as us at uni and you at school, us at uni, you at school, all the way through. It is not us at uni, you at school. No, 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 no. We weave the two together. And when we've got the both of them working in synchrony, then we've got our Sussex curriculum, okay? So at the core of it, check out my apple, we've got our core content framework, right? So laid down government entitlement. And the word entitlement, I don't mean lightly. They have to be able to get access and have the responsibility of that core content framework. Then we've got the Sussex ITE professional studies and school professional studies. So they deal with safeguarding, prevent, how to work with Senkos, the stuff about child psychology, all that wider role that it doesn't matter what subject you're in, that stuff's important, okay? And that's all linked together and linked to the CCF. And then our subject stuff, where we teach our trainees how to teach in a particular way, especially in secondary. We all teach differently. Our subjects are different. They have different needs. And we link it all to what we're calling areas of intent, where it's divided into different areas that are just really obvious, okay? So our map, when you see it, will take each Friday, each part of the curriculum and our induction. You'll see what bit of the Sussex wheel is attached to. Sorry again. So you'll see what it's attached to in our programme, and you'll know each week what we're covering at uni, and then what you can have as a focus as well at school, so that it all weaves together. So in science, for example, I will send out a weekly bulletin to my mentors and say what we've got as our focus for the week, and that's what the trainee should be observing with that hat on. Some feedback from Patsy last year, who said, can we do it for 2 weeks so that she can prepare? Absolutely. So that's what we're going to do, and that's what you should expect from your curriculum tutor. Now, to help you with the CCF, and again, to make sure that you don't have to look at the big document, I've made some help sheets. Now they're guided for you for each phase of our training year. So phase A all the way to phase E, which is the way we divide up our year. A little bit more on that in a sec. They are color coded. I've just got the front page on here, and hopefully this is clear. It is clear. So color coded for each of those strands that we have. So pedagogy, and on the other side, relationships and behavior. So note the language of these. They change through the year so that you don't have to reinterpret them. So there's 5 different sets, okay? When they come in September, for those of you watching this ready for placement 1, the language is very much about discussion, observation, starting, yeah, being aware, reflecting. So please note that it's not I'm coming in and doing, it's okay, I'm in soaking in mode, I'm taking it all in, I'm seeing what's going on. Now there's sheets like that, they're on our website. They'll also be on the mentor Padlet that I've made, and they should also be on your subject Padlet. So you shouldn't be able to avoid these help sheets. You need to use them all the time though, please, and get used to using them in your mentor meetings and in your observations, so that we know that everybody's making sure that their trainees getting their entitlement. At the end of each one are a series of questions. Now, our real focus for mentoring at Sussex is don't tell if you can ask. It's the same as the classroom. You ask them something rather than just giving them the answer. And it's exactly the same thing, because we know that's where better learning happens, is if the person has to work it out themselves. Now, quite difficult when they first start. They're very much in baby bird mode, you know, give me, give me, give me. But there are certain questions that you could ask. You know, where can you look to see, let's make it slightly bigger, where can you look to see what pupils have learnt before? You know, where have you gone to look at the schemes of work in the department? Show me that you've got a good knowledge of Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, okay? So we hope that you'll use these questions in your mentor meetings, but certainly, please, in your lesson debrief, okay? So it's very much question orientated rather than directive. Now, as the year goes on, the mentoring year, we become a lot more city back. To begin with, we are a bit more like this because we don't have a lot of time to get them up and running, and they don't know your school. You know, we can't just leave them wandering around asking questions. It's just going to bug everybody. So it is much more directive at the beginning, but as we move through the phases, we can become much more of a sort of coach mentor rather than mentor. And as the year goes on and you watch more of our videos, you'll hear much more about that. So being a mentor, if you're watching this after phase A, so you could, most of you are either going to be phase A or you're going to be phase D, all right, where they come after February half term. Look at the phase help sheets. They are different for each one, okay? And make sure that you've got the language right. So phase A is finding out, yeah? B is trying out, C is consolidating, and D is moving on. So if you're starting with this in D, they still have an awful lot of questions. They're starting in a new school. They're going to need very similar things to what they needed in A. Just because they've been in a school doesn't mean that they know how your school works, all right? They'll still be green. They'll be green again, all right? So please make sure that you check the language so that you see where they're supposed to be. Now, the CCF is mapped against the teacher standards. I know this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So you don't need to worry about the teacher standards because really the CCF has been mapped against them. It covers them. If they meet every entitlement of the CCF, they will have no problem evidencing that they've met the teacher standards at the end of the year. It should just happen, which is why really we don't talk about the teacher standards really until phase DE, because it's then that they're going to start thinking, have I met this standard? Do I have enough evidence? So they should still be collating evidence all the way through the year, but just not necessarily putting it into teacher standard boxes. Okay, they can do, but I think that could get a bit confusing for some of them. So right at the end, this is then how we assess. With the CCF, we are just making sure they're getting their entitlement, checking their development, feeding back on their development, but not really, we're not summatively assessing until the end. It's formative through phase A, B, C, D, and only at phase E do we go, right, have you made it or not? And we use the teacher standards for that. And this is how we assess them right at the end. So if you're a new mentor to Sussex, but not a brand new mentor to mentoring, please be sure not to use the teacher standards as your way of formatively assessing the trainee through the year, because that's not the right way to do it. That's a sort of an older way of doing it that really won't work. We must be using the CCF. So, a year in the life of a Sussex mentor. This is what our year looks like. We are in induction right now when I'm making this. You'll probably be watching this something around the 20th of September, 21st of September, something like that. Please, I hope you are watching this before your trainee arrives, otherwise it's a little bit late. Although better late than never, I suppose. But really, you need this information and mindset before they come in. So, as I explained, this is our PGCE core route through the year, where they have our placement that goes all the way to February. We love that at Sussex. We think it works brilliantly. The kids really respond quite drastically different to the trainees when they come back in January, because they're like, oh, you're here again. And their behaviour gets better and better. So they get this really quite long relationship with their classes as they're building them up slowly. We do it quite slowly. 8 contact hours by Christmas, and then they continue with their 8 contact hours until February half term. And as I've said, finding out, trying out, lots of mistakes. They should be spending long hours planning. No, don't want to hear that someone spent 15 minutes planning a lesson. That's no good. We have it at 8 because we want quality. It's not 8 so that they can slack off, right? We want really good, hard fought lessons in that first term. See these little SPs, they're called support plans. Now that's when you can press a magic buzzer, a paperwork magic buzzer that says, not quite right, something's not right here. Now, obviously that first, you'll have already filled in a phase A report, which is all about, so the phase A report will come in just after October half term. That one's all about professionalism and did they arrive right? Are they making all the right moves? This one is they didn't start teaching right. It's not quite right. They're not getting their plans in advance and you can't check them. They're not taking your advice and feedback. They're late. Do you know what? All that stuff that gives you the wiggins, right? Now, before you fill that in, don't just fill that in and send it off. You really need to let your tutor know in the run-up things aren't quite going right. Be in constant contact with your tutor. You'll have their email address. Just send those emails, right? And if you don't get a quick response, please copy me in, all right? Because we want to know much sooner rather than later. If we catch them early, we can fix it, right? Catch them later is much harder, okay? So that's what those SPs are. They're a beep, little alarm bell goes off. So they carry on at 8 hours every Friday back at uni. It's a bit different after in January. We have some sort of a whole cohort days, but don't worry too much about that. Their big assignment is due after half term in February, so they're working on that a lot in that half term. Then they move on to their second placement. Very little time at university here. We want them in school doing those 5 days a week. Easters, they might get a bit of time off at Easter actually, but they're preparing then for their final assignment, which is the RPK at the end of the year. So depending on what time of the year you're looking at this would depend on, what stage your trainee is at. So very green at the beginning, really green until Christmas because they're working it out. They're going to have some bad lessons, take a bit of a dip, hopefully really picking themselves up in January, February, starting again after February half term, and then getting better and better and better. They've got to get quick. They've got to get better quickly. Placement 2. They've really got to, shake it off. So we have they're like a Viva, our final assignment. So APK is a big written one, and there'll be little videos through the year to explain these to you. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time on that. And then the RPK is much more like a sort of, it's a Viva basically, but very much like that. Lovely week off there. That's a proper week off. And then we take them on lots of lovely activities and enrichment week. All these bits over here, that's our partnership conference where hopefully you'll come and visit us. And then these are examples, which really, it doesn't really involve our mentors. And then the pre-course day is when we, yet again, meet our next cohort. Okay, school direct is different. So if you've got a school direct trainee, it's the same until February. Then they go on an intense block, right? They've got to learn something new in those 6 weeks. And we're doing something quite different about that this year, where we're really making the trainees work for their work in those 6 weeks, where they're going to have honed timetables, a real sharp focus, so that those 6 weeks have real meaning for their development. If they're doing a whole spread of different classes, they don't come away having really honed a particular skill. So different sort of mindset for that this year. And then they finish the same as everybody else. That colour's wrong. Apologies for that. That colour is a bit wrong. Okay, so 5 phases in the Sussex year: A, B, C, D, and E. A is right at the beginning, super green, going to school. It's basically full induction, uni induction and school induction, trying things out. All right, finding things out. Sorry. Phase B, they come back after October half term, teach up to Christmas. Phase C is when we come back after Christmas, and they consolidate what they've done, ready to get to the placement 2. D and E are all about being in school and just doing it on their own a lot more. So a lot less guidance from mentors, a lot more coaching. It's got a very different flavour when we start to get into the summer. Now, how to get ready for your trainee. So it doesn't matter whether you're phase A or D, right? They've got to feel part of the whole school. Please make them feel welcome. I hear some really sad stories about people that go into school and they were left ignored for hours. And we know that everybody's really busy. I do know that. And I remember that first day as a mentor and professional tutor myself, thinking, oh, God, I've got so much to do today. But a quick welcome in the morning, manage their expectations is what I would say. So if you are going to leave them for a couple of hours, tell them. Don't just leave them there and then apologise after. Let them know what the day is going to be like. Please make sure they've got mentor meetings very quickly when they start with you, and then they have to happen once a week. Professional studies will happen once a week. What they have to do, basically what they're doing is they're planning and delivering lessons and reflecting on their lessons and building an assessment when they can as they develop. Assessment comes later for trainees. They can't get their heads around it to begin with. To begin with, it's standing up and not falling over. Did they deliver a lesson? Yeah. And then eventually they work out they've got to get that knowledge back again. But I promise you, it takes time. November, they're not going to be doing any assessment for learning. They'll do spot checks, but really not an awful lot else. They do need to be attached to a form and learn how to be a form tutor. They've got to be developing their subject knowledge with you. The purpose of being with their mentor is not just to learn how to teach, but to teach their subject. We are specialists in our subject, and I cannot emphasize that enough. We are there to guide them with our professional knowledge about, in my case, teaching science. In your case, might be teaching geography. They must know what it's like to be a geography teacher and to teach geography, not just teach children. First and foremost, we teach children. Of course we do. That's why we're here. But we are teaching children to love our subjects, yeah? To go home and go, oh, my favourite subject is drama. My favourite subject is music. That's the battle we're all fighting, to be the favourite, okay? They also have uni work to do. So they've got all that going on in school. And then they'll have directed tasks. They'll be doing their big assignments as well. And we're constantly on at them with lots of things that they need to do. So loads in the guidebook on this. Please read those pages about how to prepare for your training. Again, I can't go through it all here. It's important to take part in the training, and no, it's awful if they meet as a cohort and they're all talking about what their mentors know, and then their mentor's like, my mentor hasn't done any of the training, they don't know anything. That's really sad, right? So please be a part of all of the training, and just turn up to the online Zooms, whatever it is. But it is really important to be a part of that community. Think about their timetable. I'll talk more about that in a sec. They do need to settle in and feel welcome. Please don't just shove them in a corner, or give them a tiny space in the back of someone's office where private conversations are happening. They need to feel like they belong, right? It's really important. And hopefully you'll have a chance to either meet them or Zoom them or email, whichever is easiest for you, before they start with you in their placement. I'll whiz through this because I'm a bit worried about time. I think so the first few days, I think I've covered quite a bit of this really. You need to make them feel at home and that they can trust you. They do need to meet the team, like so English team, science team, whatever it is. They need to know where to go. To you, the school makes sense. It doesn't to them. They'll be absolutely lost. They won't have a clue. So make sure they've got a map or they've got some kids to follow. They need to be able to access all the policies. You know, if you want them to be independent teachers and not constantly relying on you, you need to go, well, where was the behaviour policy again? Go and have a look. Don't have them constantly coming to you. Get them to be independent right from the off. Show them where the schemes of work are, how to take registers, all that stuff. Now, behaviour policy is really important. That and the safeguarding. Make sure they are up to speed. And can we please make sure that they know how to get out in a fire? That's also incredibly important. Right, designing their timetable. If we can, and we know that this isn't always possible, it is not a deal breaker, don't worry. 50% of their timetable with you. Now, it's only 8 hours contact time, so we hope that you can share 8 hours a week with your trainee, because if you only see them once a week, that's the only lesson you're ever going to see. And what if that lesson is a bottom set year 9, right? So you have to see them teach a variety of children so that you can look at them with their year 7 and go, yeah, that's great. You got that totally nailed. Now use those techniques with the year 11. It's the same, yeah? But if you only see them with one group of children, you're not going to be able to see how they can transfer those skills. So please, 50%. It can also be more if necessary. But sometimes it's good to have some other teachers in the mix. Do not spread them too thin. They only have 8 hours contact teaching. If you give them 8 different classes, they're all over the place. I've seen some extraordinary timetables over the year where I'm like, well, that's a cover supervisor timetable. That's not someone we tell them all the time it's about relationships. And then if you give them a timetable where they can't make a relationship, they know they've been set up to not do well. Now, some of you teach in specialisms where they don't see the same kids often enough, but the payback for that is that they get to teach the same thing over and over again. So just explain the timetable to the trainee and let them know why it is the way it is. Tutor group, right? Got to have one. Put their meetings in there so that they can't forget, okay? So important that they observe. This is my real bugbear. This has become a bit of a personal mission / vendetta, right? They are supposed to observe expert colleagues, i.e. you or other colleagues, every single week, right up until the end. They are still a trainee until the end. And then they've got 2 years of early career where they won't have time to observe anybody. This is their moment to sit in the back of a room and absorb the awesomeness of colleagues, right? It is non-negotiable. It doesn't stop at the end of September, beginning of October. They observe all the way through, okay? And if they're getting their knickers in a twist over planning and tell you that they don't have time to observe, something needs to happen to the planning, okay? They must observe colleagues. Doesn't have to be a whole lesson. They need to go in, are they looking at entrances, exits, starters, activities, whatever it is, go in and observe with a focus, but they will happen. They have to happen. Placement 1, you plan the timetable for Fridays at uni. Placement 2, include Fridays because they're only out for a couple. And again, the guidebook and the generic training videos take you through those. Right, first mentor meeting is a really important one. It's how you set the tone. Now, this is a professional relationship, but it is also a friendship that we're building. So find out about them. Don't avoid those tricky conversations about what might be their hurdles. All right, the sooner we find out, the sooner we can make plans of how we're going to deal with them. Okay, get them to be honest about their subject knowledge gaps. If they're not honest, you're soon going to see it in the classroom anyway. Much better if they're upfront. it's important to tell them what your school is like, right? Be honest with them. Be honest with them. Without being, we don't want any negatives. Obviously, you love your school, so I'm sure it's not going to be negative. Be honest about what the school is like. What's the demographic? What's the community like? Tell them what they're dealing with. They're not going to find that out quickly. So a heads up would be really good. Now, this one's important. Your expectations should never be fuzzy, okay? You want those plans in 24 hours, you say that. You say that. Mean it, okay? It's just like those classes in September. Lay it down and then you won't have to deal with it later on. It's very difficult later on, a trainee saying, yeah, but you didn't make a fuss before. I mean, we're going to want to know if somebody says that to you because that's not okay. Lay it down to begin with. Set the bar high and then you can always bring it down. Don't start low and try and drag it back up. It's too much like hard work, okay? Now, the first meeting is getting to know each other. And then in the guidebook, right at the back, one of the last appendices is a recommended list for your mentor meetings through the year. You're going to deviate from them. Of course you are. We don't want a script. It's just if you're not sure, those meetings are there for you. And those meetings mustn't just be about, oh, so that lesson you did the other day, right? No. Mentor meetings are developmental. Pick a particular aspect of the CCF. So you might want to talk about how you would, when we get to sort of December, how are you genuinely adapting for children who have special educational needs and disability? Genuinely adapting. January, you might start to go, look, we've let assessment go a bit. We're going to make that a real focus for the next 2 weeks to give you a shot of it. So those meetings need to be, they're juicy. They're not just blah, 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 blah. What are you planning next week? Have you got the resources? Make that quick. That's stuff they can go and work out on their own. These mentor meetings should be about how am I making you the best teacher you can be in a really focused way. And they have to be an hour, please. They do have to be an hour. 20 minutes isn't going to do it, okay? So after induction, we follow a certain pattern. So either you're inducting them in September or February, whichever it is. Please keep the mentor meetings at the same time each week. It's very difficult for them if you keep moving for them. There does need to be a level of privacy for those meetings. You are supposed to be this counselor, this friend. Let's try and get the right environment for that, okay? I mean, obviously, if they're crying to you every week, get in touch with us. You know, A, that's going to be pretty wearing on you, but B, it means there's something not quite right. So when I say counselling, I don't mean that you're there to take all of their burden and their life burden. You know, that's not your role. Your role is to listen. It's all got to be linked to teaching, really, okay, as much as we can. Avoid negative language. For some trainees, like big pokes like this, where if you always start your debrief with them with what went wrong, if any of us live with that, if we all got the criticism first and then afterwards like, oh yeah, but that was good, it feels like an afterthought. Start with the good, yeah, then move on to the even better if, and then finish with the good. You know the phrase, a certain sort of sandwich, right? So we got good stuff. Oh, but how about changing this? And then, oh, and that bit you did at the end of the lesson, oh, I just loved it, right? We want them buoyed as much as possible, not coddled, buoyed, okay? Talked about development, use the phase sheets, please. And then each week, like I said, we've got a list of what you might want to cover, You might have your own ideas because each of your trainees is going to develop at a very different pace, right? And that's okay. That's absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong way to train to be a teacher. Now, at the end of each mentor meeting, they then fill in something called Pebble Pad, right? So they go online. It's quite a swish online platform, and they fill that in, and we check it. So we are checking to see that the mentor meetings are happening. Full disclosure, right? Are they happening? Was it developmental? And we'll look at what, an outline of the discussion. Now, they are supposed to come prepared for those mentor meetings. They are their meeting that they're just asking of you for your time. It's not for you to direct them. And again, if they're doing that, just letting you do everything for them, that's another little panic button, okay? Right, how to get them teaching. Gosh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to whiz on. All of this is in the guidebook, okay? They've got to observe first, then act as a teaching assistant, start with small things, plenaries and starters, get them to plan a worksheet. If you're watching this later on in the year, tiny bits of this, phase D, they got, sorry. Apologies. They've got to dive in a little bit quicker in phase D. They'll do a bit of induction, maybe a year of induction, and then you'll get them teaching 4 lessons or so. But again, there'll be another generic video about that. They'll be quick, these next videos, don't worry. I know this one's quite long. Now, they have to do the Sussex lesson plan every single lesson, right? To begin with, it's quite long. It'll get shorter through the year. Now, get them to hand it to you at least 24 hours, working hours. They don't get to send it to you on a Sunday. That's not okay. 22, 24. Some people do 48. It's quite long. We'll see. 72 is too long. It's cruel. Yeah, so please don't let us hear about 72 hours in advance. There's too much that happens in it. 3 days is a long time for a trainee. Do check their plan, but please don't change everything unless it's wildly off, right? So leave them to teach it, and then they can work out afterwards. If you're constantly fiddling with it, who's taught the lesson? They've got to learn to do it. So as long as it's not dangerous and it's not wrong, let them teach it, and then they'll go, yeah, that didn't work. Please don't, you're not a puppet master, right? You're a mentor. Let them do it. We work it out after. And co-planning until really they're ready to do it on their own. January and beyond. And then you start again in phase D co-planning. Okay. Right. Observing, really important part of being a new mentor. You've got to establish the rules for it. So when you observe them each week, and you have to observe them each week, what are the rules? What are you looking for? You establish the focus and you make sure it's clear. Link it to the CCF, makes life really easy. What are you doing? Are you going to be moving around being a TA? Are you just going to sit and watch? Let's be clear about what those rules are too. Please don't be shouting stuff from the back. It's not good. Doesn't work for anybody. Kids then feel that you're still in charge, and then there's no way that trainee is going to make progress. And as a mentor, we will take pride from our trainee doing well, right? We don't want a battle of wills. It's no good for anybody. Please write long notes. You're only writing 1 lesson observation a week, a formal one. The rest of the time you might write in a notebook or something. Copious notes, please. In the debrief afterwards, they are bamboozled and adrenaline fueled, and none of it, I promise you, is going in. None of it's going in. They then can go away with your lesson observation, read it, digest it, and see those targets, those developmental targets and the strengths really clearly. So the more you write, the better. One-liners, no good. Okay, we need to know, they need to know what they've done well and how, which bit was that went well. So for example, it was really good behavior management today. Now that's too bland, we don't like that. For example, your interaction with Joshua when he was very distracted was very well handled. You gave him time out, you brought him back in, and then he did his work. Be really clear what they've done well, what was that incident. And the same with the targets. What didn't go so well, and how are they going to go away and do it? And when you're sitting at the back, try not to look too stern. Yeah, try and put a smile on your face. So to do the actual observation feedback time, it's better if it's not straight after the lesson. It's better if it's later. So they've had a chance to write their reflections, and then they can come and talk to you and say what they think went well and what they think needs to improve before you get involved. If you do it straight after the lesson, they literally haven't got a clue. They don't know. It's especially when they first start teaching. So it's almost a pointless exercise doing it straight after a lesson. So if you can, do it later. Use the help sheets in the feedback if you can, and then they will fill Pebble Pad in. So your lesson observation each week, they will upload to Pebble Pad, and they'll tell us what the targets and the strengths were. This is what the lesson observation looks like. Vital sections are the bit about subject pedagogy. So your subject, what did they do well in the teaching of English? Yeah, when we read these, we shouldn't need to see what cohort they're from. It should be really obvious from that comment that they are from English, they are from maths, or they are from science, okay? And we get 3 strengths, one of which is all about subject to subject pedagogy. So it might be subject knowledge that they've shown it's really good. They love to be boosted on their subject knowledge. Or it's about the way that you teach your subject, and they did that well. And then the reverse of the targets. Did they have some dodgy subject knowledge they've got to go and look at? Or was there an element of our subject pedagogy that they need to go away and improve on? So for me, it's likely to be practical skills. So they're both essential that they are labelled with subject, soaked in your subject, okay? Now, we only want 2 targets as a minimum, right? In the past, we used to have 3. This one's optional. So we'd rather have 2 really well-written, verbose, explanatory targets than just have 3 that are sort of cursory. They need to be real developmental targets, not you should hand your lesson plan in 24 hours in advance. That's not a target. Well, it is, but it's not to do with the lesson. That's a separate side note. That's a professional issue. This is about the lesson and the way the kids learned, right? That's what's important. Looking at the kids, how did they do? How are those kids going to learn better? Yeah, so let's make sure that the really juicy bits go on here. The other half, and it is an essential part. I've seen some observations over the last few years where it's just this front bit filled in. It's a bit weird. Please fill in the timeline, which is the second bit of the observation form, and do your best to link it to the CCF strand. Not every bit, you'll be exhausted, right? But there's a little helpful sheet here in the lesson observation where you can put the strand that applies to it. Here's some examples for you to look at later on. They are long. We like long. It's only once a week. Okay, assessing your training. I'm so sorry, this is running a little bit over. Apologies, there's a lot to get through. Right, 5 phases, A to E. In their Pebble Pad, there's phase report forms that they fill in. They write their bit, they write their reflections, and then you read those, and then you write your stuff in there. Now, 3 grades to begin with, not grades, just signals. Signals, by the way, that isn't about assessing. Passes, absolutely fine. Passes, I've got the Wiggins, or fails, right? If you tick in the second one, we need to know about it. You can't tick the third one without letting us know. That can't come as a surprise. So, to be honest, you can't tick fail unless we've gone through that support plan process. That's why that support plan is so important. If you miss that deadline, we're going to have to do that middle one, all right? So be on it with the support plan. If it's going wrong, let us know, and then we take them through that procedure. And then you come in, and on Pebble Pad, you'll write your overall comments, and then 3 areas of strength, nice and long, you're doing this well, you're doing that well, non-judgmental, and then 3 targets as well. Here's an example of where someone's written some lovely stuff about their trainee, and another one there. And please make sure that they're nice, those are just the overall statements, but for the targets and the strengths, let's be clear. Now, other considerations. Keep in touch with your curriculum tutor all the time, right? The mentors that I work really well with are the ones that drop me a little email saying, Fee, I just got a bit, something's not quite right, right? And I can get back to them and go, oh, I'm kind of glad you said that, actually, because at the uni end, it's also not quite right. And we're going to put the 2 sides together. Now, sometimes that means that we have an intervention and we talk to the trainee and they fix it and it goes well. Or we bring the 2 bits together and we go on a support plan, okay? Do not suffer in silence. Now, I'd also say it's really nice if you email us and tell us things are going well. That'd be nice, okay? But sometimes I appreciate when it's like, everything's going well, you're really busy, you don't want to email us going, yeah, it's going well, what do you want to know, right? So the most important thing is that you email us if things just don't feel quite right. And I'll explain a few signals of what's about that. We all want you to email us, okay? All of us. So please, early alert, quick fix. Now, things that might give you the Wiggins, right? That they are ill a lot. They're not ill, they're not in on Mondays. Always a bit of a dodgy one, right? Now, punctuality in teaching is not punctuality in the rest of the world, is it, right? So for those of you that are watching that are my alumni, there's different clocks in Fee's world. So being early is the new on time in teaching. So they have to be early. Rocking in at 8:30, oh no, that doesn't wash, does it? So we expect them to live up to our standards of professionalism. And we know why we get in early. It's to be there before the kids. So there's all kinds of reasons. So those, keep an eye on those, right? Dress code issues that despite you telling them that's not an appropriate way to dress in our school, they keep doing it anyway. That's a no-no, right? They do as they're told. They are guests in your school. They don't get to pick and choose what rules they abide by. They may not like the rules, but they don't apply to your school. But at the moment, they're guests, right? And they need to behave appropriately. Attitude to workload, excessive moaning. Oh, we want to know about that straight away. That's a no. What did they think it was going to be like, right? We want them positive. You know, sitting in the corner of the staff room doing this, deeply unprofessional. Unprofessional language or attitude to the course. So maybe they're overtly negative about university because they don't want to do the work or whatever it is. Let us know. So once they've started teaching, so those are very early ones. Overly needy, wanting you to basically do it for them, or needing sort of patted on the back 24/7. That's not a good sign. They can't cope with the workload, or they're unwilling to do. Now, let's be honest, they've got to work at the weekends for a bit. That's what it entails to begin with. There's no way around that. I can't see a way around that. So accepting that in these 9 months there will be some weekend work. They've all had it explained, right? So they need to get on board. If they're finding it hard to take advice, that can be tricky. Let us know about that too. They don't have any choice. They have to take your advice, okay? They're not reflecting on their teaching, so they just end the lesson and wander off. Defensive in feedback's not a good sign. Not getting up their paperwork and not marking. These are all red flags. And I would say not small ones either. They're quite big ones. So let us know. So contact us immediately if any of those or any others are happening. Remind them all the time that when you're giving them developmental targets, it's not criticism. They surely want to be a good teacher. That's why they're on this course. And this feedback will help them to be a better teacher. If you're positive, it'll rub off. Sometimes we've had mentors in the past where they're quite negative and then the trainee feeds into that, and then we get this sort of cycle of negativity. And it's very difficult for us to come in and help with that because it's already begun. Now, if a lesson observation, the formal lesson observation goes badly, rearrange it. Yeah. When I was a mentor, I'd watch one and I thought, oh, that's out of character. You're normally much better than that. I'll watch you again tomorrow. And I just get rid of it. Yeah. I mean, it's still in my head. It hasn't disappeared, right? So if it started popping up all the time, but I don't necessarily have to submit it as the formal one for that week. I think we also have to be on their side, on-side mentoring. You're going to hear a lot more about that this year from me. So if it's not going so well, I won't explain that. So sorry, brain's a bit mushy. So final notes. I apologise if this is slightly over. It might not be. It's just all my pausing to cough. I'm so sorry about the decrepit creature you find before you. Hopefully next time you see me, I won't look quite so horrendous. So if in doubt, I've said this again, contact us, contact your tutor. There's a list of us in the guidebook. We are there, fully public. We're all over our website. We don't hide our identity. We want you to get in touch. Now, the web page is the place to go. That's where you want to go. That web page shows us everything you need. All right, let's show you again. So here we go, guidebook. There's a special poster for this year as well that's got, I put a little mental Padlet together, and there's the face help sheets, and there's the little poster. Good God, there's my gob again. So please use what's available, and if you are stuck in any way as a new mentor, please get in touch with me. Your curriculum tutor should be your first port of call, but some of your curriculum tutors work in school for quite a few days of the week. So if you're struggling and it's urgent, you just get in touch with me and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. So it's a real shame that I couldn't see you in person for our mentor training, and whatever time of the year you're starting with us, I hope you found this video useful. I hope I've been rambling like a sort of completely crazy woman for the last hour. I hope it was in some way coherent. But thanks ever so much for watching and for paying attention and for being a mentor with us. We could not be more grateful. I promise you. You are. Can't emphasize it enough. The most important people in our cohort, bar none. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And as the mentor leads, I know that stuff. Okay. So take care, everybody. Have a great year. Get in touch with us if things aren't quite going so well. But I hope to see loads of you at some point during the year and maybe at the conference at the end. Take care. All the best.